A little prime time action this week, Miami Dolphins fans. As you know, we got the Sunday night football slot, week 7 on NBC against the Philadelphia Eagles. Battle of a couple between a couple of 5-1 teams. One of the most highly anticipated matchups in the entire NFL year to date. Definitely looking forward to this one. It's our final preview and prediction video. We did one earlier in the week. If you didn't check it out, go back and check that one out. We talked about some of the key matchups to keep an eye on. And today we're going to talk about the team's final injury report, some team news. We're going to hit on viewer questions that we accumulated. Before I jump into any of that, I want to hear from you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you are getting subscribed, and then let's hear your final score predictions. Drop those in the comments. Let's load that puppy up with a bunch of Miami Dolphins victories. 6-1 sounds nice? Sounds nice to me. Let's jump into the news. Latest injury updates. So as always, the latest injuries, the full injury report for both teams is on the scroll. You'll notice that the Dolphins have Jalen Ramsey listed as out. We already knew that. He's back at practice, but we knew he wasn't going to play this week. However, Xavier Howard, Alec Ingold, Nick Needham, Connor Williams, all listed as questionable. Connor Williams, Xavier Howard dealing with those groins. Both of them definitely want to play, and you could see that from Xavier Howard during his Friday media availability. He made it very clear that he wants to be out there. He wants to be tested by the likes of A.J. Brown, by the likes of Devontae Smith. We'll see how that goes. If I'm taking a shot at it right now, I think Xavier Howard is more likely to be able to give it a shot than Connor Williams, but we'll see how that all plays out. As of now, both are listed as questionable. Now, 2 Philadelphia Eagles in the secondary have officially been ruled out. It's the guys we assumed were going to be out. Reed Blankenship, Bradley Roby are out for Sunday night. But the likes of Jalen Carter, stud rookie interior defensive lineman, Devontae Smith, former Tua teammate, Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles in the league, and Darius Slay, their best cornerback, all officially off the injury report. But I talked about it in the first preview video. Lane Johnson suffered that ankle injury just a week ago. The fact that he's playing is a bit of a surprise. Now, the prognosis on the, look at me in my medical terms, on the injury isn't turned out to be as bad as they originally thought. So he's going to be able to give it a go. In my opinion, there's no way he's going to be 100%. Fangio, you got to take advantage of that opportunity. Load up from that side, blitz from that side, whatever you got to do. We need to test Lane Johnson's ankle. But let's jump into some of the viewer questions. As always, thank you to everyone that submitted a question. I always try to get to as many as possible. But let's jump in right away. I want to get the injury report thing off the screen here, and then we'll pop up the first question. It comes from Matt, and it's any potential trade deadline targets for the Miami Dolphins. Now, I finally do have some information regarding potential trade deadline targets. I probably buried the lead a little bit here in this one. But as of Friday, when I'm recording this, no official offers have been made by the Miami Dolphins, but the Miami Dolphins have made calls to check on the availability of 2 linebackers, 2 that I'm aware of anyways. Levante David of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Frankie Louvu of the Carolina Panthers. So as of right now, what's that tell us? Well, that tells me that the targeted position, if the Miami Dolphins make a move before the deadline, is linebacker, and those are a couple of names to keep an eye on. Both would obviously be nice upgrades. If you look at what would be a position of need, it's obviously linebacker for this team. We will see if anything progresses. Obviously, last year we made the deal for Bradley Chubb at the deadline. Trade deadline in the NFL ends up being a lot of hype, a lot of times with less deals. A lot of things need to go right in order to make these deals happen. Keep your eye on those names and that position, though, in case anything were to go down. Let's go into the next question here. And this one's coming in from Chris. And it's, how much longer do we see Eli Apple playing over Cam Smith? And then another one, should Miami use a quarterback spy for the majority of the game against Jalen Hurts? Thanks, Chris, for the question. Now, if Xavier Howard doesn't play or is limited or re-aggravates the injury during the game, he could be brought in, Cam Smith could be brought in a little bit quicker than we anticipate, a little bit more often than we anticipate, getting more snaps than we have seen him so far. But I do know that the team truly wants to up his snap count sooner rather than later. Nothing obviously concrete here or there, But the team is relying, at least in my opinion, on Eli Apple because he's been there, he's done that. It's not that his play's been bad. It's not that his play's been overwhelmingly good either. But right now, you're going to rely on him. You've got that veteran experience, and we're going against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's going to be a tall task for a guy like Cam Smith if he were to get thrown in here. But one nice thing about Cam Smith, sure, he's a rookie, sure, he's aggressive, but at the end of the day, the practice reps he's getting are against Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So you can't replicate what you see on Sundays in the NFL in practice. But if there's practice guys you're going to go against, which are going to potentially get you ready for actual in-game action, which we've seen very little of from so far from Cam Smith, it's going against Tyreek Hill and it's going against Jalen Waddle. In regards to the quarterback spy, I say, yeah, you likely either got to spy or you got to play a lot of zone coverage, which lucky for us, that's kind of what Vic Fangio's calling card is. Now, this is me speculating, but just kind of a plan that maybe they could potentially use. Jalen Phillips is on the snap count. He's off the injury report, but he is on a snap count. So when he's on the edge, Bradley Chubb on the other side, you've got Andrew Van Ginkel at your disposal. Maybe you use a guy like Andrew Van Ginkel. In that spiral, he's got good instincts. He's got good speed. He's got good experience. You could potentially use him there. And then when Phillips is off the field, you got Andrew Van Ginkel at edge. You got Chubb or Ogba on the other edge. Maybe a guy like Jerome Baker could play as a spy. We've seen Javon Holland play a little bit as a spy. Or you just go back into that zone coverage and kind of have some guys ready in the event that Jalen Hurts takes off. Just a couple of ideas, just a little bit of speculating, but that's kind of the plan that I would have in mind. Something to look for. Next question from Alejandro. If Chase Claypool plays, in what capacity can he make the Dolphins offense even better against the Eagles? I'm going to ad lib a little bit here. I'm going to talk about just Chase Claypool's usage in general versus just this week. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to play. So rather than focusing on just the Eagles game, I'll focus on him in general. Now, if you look at him, he's got speed. He's got the size. He's got he's got legit talent. He's got legit production in this league. So if you think about that, it's like, we don't have a super tall guy or a big bodied guy for those red zone targets, which oddly enough, NFL red zone scoring is down in regards to touchdowns. And we're like doing it better than anyone has ever done it. So our red zone offense isn't struggling. It's not that we necessarily need a big bodied guy, but he would provide that option as an alternative route for the red zone as well. And then you got those packages when Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are off the field. Well, guess what? If Claypool were to step in, you've got a big, fast guy that can get and be that vertical stretcher. And even if it's not just a vertical stretch of the field, he's still generally a good receiving threat the way that it is. So hopefully you can use that size. And the other thing that he can provide is blocking. And I know that there's very terrible tape of performance and effort of him blocking with the Bears, but there's some nice tape out there of him earlier in his career at Notre Dame where he was using that big frame, that big size that he has to his advantage in blocking. So just a couple of things to keep an eye on when it comes to Chase Claypool when his number eventually gets called. Let's do one more question here. This one is from Benjamin. With the Eagles' defensive line being as strong as it is, would you consider a strategy to somehow reduce the risk of additional injuries along the offensive line? I'll be honest, I'm not an offensive line guru to know how you could necessarily prevent injuries just by doing something on the field, but something the team might take into consideration here, and we hit on it a little bit earlier, is the idea of maybe just sitting Connor Williams and having another go at it with Liam Eichenberg. He showed to do a lot better this last week against the Panthers, so maybe there's not as much worry from the coaching staff, but that's maybe you could see coming this week is just to sit versus the Eagles, try to get healthy for the upcoming games. It's probably no secret Connor Williams likely got rushed back a little bit too soon in that game against the Giants. If he doesn't play in that game, if he doesn't re-aggravate that injury, we're probably not in the situation that we're in right now. So hindsight, maybe he could have sat that game. But you got to imagine going into that game, the coaching staff was like, man, we just got blitzed by the Buffalo Bills up the middle. Liam Eichenberg was a liability. We need Connor Williams back. They probably felt the sense of urgency after getting tossed around by the Bills the way we did to bring Connor Williams back for that game. That's gone. That's in the past. However, you may be able to see the team take a little bit of a long-term approach with Connor Williams in the event they sit him this week. Let's jump into the prediction. I've got the Dolphins winning this one in a close one, back and forth, high scoring 34-31 Sunday night football victory. Now, I'll start by saying I don't consider this week must win by any means. I've talked previously about how your conference games, your division games, the upcoming games against the Patriots, the Bills, the Chiefs, upcoming two more in the near future against the Jets, those are likely even more important games when you're talking about division and conference games. But man, would it be nice to beat a quality opponent on Sunday night football. And you know what that does? It gives the team confidence, but it kills another narrative that's surrounding Tua, that's surrounding the offense, that surrounds the team in general. It's that we're beating up on bad teams. You guys can't do it when it counts. You can't beat a team like the Bills. Well, I'll tell you what, you go on the road Sunday night, you beat Philadelphia, that narrative is gone. So yeah, it's not must win. Maybe you sit a guy like Connor Williams, get him healthy for the stretch. But man, this win would be nice. A couple of keys that I've talked about throughout the week: attack Lane Johnson, try to establish the run, keep the Eagles defensive line, that front seven, from just being able to tee off and think the Dolphins are passing on every single down. Try to get something going in the run game. But at the end of the day, I think we win this game through the air. Big plays, big nights from Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. And at the end of the day, Eagles offensively, stop their run game. We talked about it. If you can hold them rushing around 100 yards, the stats, the history from this year would say you're going to be in that game when it's all said and done. So stop that Eagles rush game. I know A.J. Brown is having a monster year, but he's not going to beat you just on his own. Whew, packed in a lot there. But like I said, I want to hear from you as well. Final score predictions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll be back hopefully at some point following the game. If you caught the first preview video, you know that my wife is expecting at any point in time here. So if I don't get to a recap right away or at all in this sake, you'll know where I am, which is probably at the hospital. But until next time, Miami Dolphins fans, fins up.